Hey everyone, Stephanie here. Alright, so today I'm going to start the beginning series of going through each chakra. So as I told you in the last video, I'm going to start explaining a little bit about each chakra and how we can work with those. So we're going to start with the root chakra today, and I'm going to drink my coffee while we do that. Alright, so your root chakra, this is the chakra that starts all of them. It starts at the base of your spine. So it actually sits at the very, very base of your spine where your coccyx is. So it's the very bottom of the spine bone. This chakra has to do with self-preservation. This is what makes us feel like we have a right to be here. So when you look at each chakra, there's going to be a theme behind the chakra. There's going to be a color behind the chakra. There's going to be an element behind the chakra. It has lots of different characteristics to it. So when we look at the root chakra, this is the one that makes us feel grounded, secure, and is like, I am meant to be here. I have a purpose in this world. So it's associated with the element earth. So it really makes sense when you think about it, because this chakra is all about grounding, and we think about things that make us feel grounded and secure. Earth really just comes to mind. If you think about a tree with its roots, grounding, making you feel stable and secure. So just like a tree, any kind of disruption that happens with this root system taking place is going to affect you for the rest of your life. So for example, any type of birth trauma that you experience. So this chakra starts forming the second trimester through 12 months. So that's the developmental period. So anything that happens during pregnancy and that first year of life is going to be extremely detrimental to this chakra. So any type of trauma. So for example, if there was a traumatic birth, if there was trauma in your mother's life while she was pregnant, if there was any type of disease, any type of nursing problems can cause issues, any type of health issues, these are all things that make you fear for your survival. And so what happens is that because this is during a very pivotal stage of development, this chakra, if it's got trauma, doesn't get to actually develop all the way. So then what we see is that this carries on to the development of the rest of the chakras, and then we carry this on throughout the rest of our life. So one of the things that's always fascinated me about the root chakra is that it's so closely tied to psychology. And so when I first started learning about chakras, I was in undergrad school, and you know, there's always been sort of this disconnect between the Western world and the Eastern world, and I was always trying to kind of find that way to marry them. And so when I learned about chakras and I started taking psychology classes, I started seeing that correlation, and I would ask my professors about it, and they were always kind of like, what are you talking about? And then I met a professor in grad school who finally was like, yes, indigenous medicine has been using chakras and understands the correlation between the physical developmental stages and the spiritual developmental stages with the chakra energy. So the root chakra is so very important, and we see this as well in psychology. Those first few years of life are very, very pivotal into how well we function as adults. So if you think about the root being the very base of what's setting up your foundation for everything else, it only makes sense that any kind of disruption in this chakra early on in life could cause a lot of problems. And this is, in my opinion, why it's so important that children have the opportunity to be with their mother and their father those first few years of life, because when we have disruptions in that bonding process, it literally sets the stage for relationship issues later on in life. Same thing for an environment that's healthy and not fighting and screaming, a child feeling safe. So, you know, a lot of times people think, oh, it's a baby, they don't understand, but they do. And it affects them energetically. So even though they can't verbally communicate, they sense that, they feel that energetically, because we're always putting off these energetic vibrations. So with that root chakra, any type of disruption can really cause a lot of problems. And so how this translates to later on in life is this root chakra is the color red. And it gives us this energy of safety and security. And as we get older, maybe we don't feel safe, or maybe we find that we're constantly putting ourselves in bad relationships, or no matter what we do, we just don't feel like we belong, or we don't feel safe. A lot of times too, this will translate into money issues because you don't feel safe. You don't feel secure in this world. So you're putting out a vibration, and that vibration is one of being scared and not feeling safe. So it's hard to attract money when you feel scared and you don't feel safe. So when we look at this chakra, there's so much more to it than just, oh, it develops and we need to have, you know, a calm, conducive environment. They also need to have an environment where they feel that they're taken care of, that they don't need to fear for food. And a lot of times this translates into breastfeeding as well. And we live in a culture that doesn't advocate breastfeeding, and it's actually shames breastfeeding. And while I think we've come a long ways in the last few years, it's still not a common occurrence for people to breastfeed. And while I 100% know that there's situations where people can't breastfeed, what happens is there's a disconnect in that bonding with the mother. And especially if the child isn't getting proper nourishment, then that chakra doesn't develop right. So it's just something to think about when we start looking at how we're raising our children. If we're not able to do those things like breastfeed, or we have to go back to work, it's super, super important that we're taking those extra steps to make our children feel very secure and taken care of. I know personally, I had to work with all of my children, and I had to leave my child with somebody, but I made sure that the person I left my kids with was very, very nurturing. I made sure that I took that extra time to hold my babies when I fed them, when I wasn't able to breastfeed, and to make sure that I did everything in my power to nourish their root chakra. So that's something we don't think about, is how do we nourish our children energetically? How are we setting them up for adulthood? So if this root chakra is damaged early on in life, we're really setting them up for disaster in relationships. And so what I'd like to see is, as parenting, and just as human beings, looking at how are we raising children? How are we setting them up to be successful adults energetically? Because what I'm seeing now is I'm working with lots of adults, myself included, trying to repair the damage that was done very early on in life. So the root chakra is the foundation to everything. So as we go through each chakra, you're going to always hear me come back to, how's your root? How's your root? It doesn't do you any good to move up through all these chakras, especially the top ones. I know we all want to achieve enlightenment and we all want these abilities, but if we're not grounded and we're not secure, it doesn't mean crap. Like, it doesn't matter, because you're not going to be able to be a balanced human being. So we start with this root chakra. So the first thing I tell people when we're working with the root chakra is go outside. It's an earthly energy. Get your feet in the grass. Touch dirt. Think about that energy and think about bringing it up through your legs. Bring it up to your root chakra. And imagine that chakra opening up. And I know it sounds really simple and woo-woo and hippie. And you're like, shit, this chick's about to tell me to go hug a tree. Yeah, go hug a tree too. That would probably help. But it really does work, because it's that same energy. And we're energetic beings. That's what we are. So we have to connect with that energy that we resonate with, so that we can heal that area, so that we can open that area up. Another thing that's super, super important to help open your chakras is meditation. And I will preach meditation all day long to people, because that shit works. Focus on bringing all that energy up to your root and allow it to open. Notice how your body feels when you do this. So those are my 2 tips for opening the root chakra. There's tons and tons of information online. If you're interested in more, go check out my journal online. It's on sale. You can get it on pre-sale. It's going to be printed and ready to go in October, but I have lots of tips on how you can open up your root chakra and start working with that energy. But you can Google it. There's tons of information out there, but the key to this is getting started and really starting to become aware of your root chakra. So in the next video, I'm going to talk about your sacral chakra, which is also your sexual chakra. And it might be a 2-parter, because there's a lot of information about your sacral chakra. All right, y'all. I will talk to you soon. Bye.